So if Canadians want to boycott Tim Hortons, which is now lobbying at least 18 different MPs to up the number of temporary foreign workers they're allowed to use from 20 to 30% of their workforce. 20% of their workforce already sounds quite low, but they claim that 1 in 5 employees are temporary foreign workers. They're lobbying to get that number up to 30%. Canadians can boycott these companies, can say, okay, I don't want to eat here anymore. I'm not going to support them with my business. And hopefully over time, the whole idea with capitalism is that the business won't be able to survive if enough people decide not to eat there. The issue is that when you have the government jumping in and subsidizing 50% of these temporary foreign worker program salaries, it's not an even playing field. In Canada, commie Canada, the government now frequently intervenes in the so-called private market. Businesses are heavily incentivized to hire temporary workers. Our government, in many cases, favors companies hiring temporary foreign workers over Canadians. It's a crazy system. But when you get to know some of these far lefties, many of them are relatively new arrivals who believe that Canadians who have been here for generations are oppressors. That's really what their worldview is. So you better be ready to get out there and fight them. But Canadians want to boycott Tim Hortons, which we should. We have the ability to do so. But when it comes to Mark Carney's investments, where of his over 600 stocks in his so-called blind trust, which is not really a blind trust, he knows exactly what's in there. Of the 600 stocks, over 90% of them are based in the United States of America. So it's obviously much more difficult for Canadians to make a financial impact on those companies. And it's blatantly obvious that Carney is working in service of his own private business interests rather than that of the Canadian people. Whether we talk about his immigration policy, his continuation of pushing this net zero garbage, which has proved not to work during Trudeau's time. It's all about getting himself and his buddies at Brookfield Asset Management as rich as possible. And it's much more difficult for Canadians to push back on it because our conflict of interest laws are so poorly enforced. It's unbelievable. It's blatantly stated in conflict of interest laws that it is illegal for the Prime Minister to use his public office in order to promote his private interests. Yet time and time again, that's what we've seen from Mark Carney. We don't hear the media bring it up whatsoever, but it's explicitly stated in the law, and he's done that on several occasions. His private business interests have done incredibly well. Meanwhile, the Canadian economy, 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth, 6 straight quarters of negative GDP per capita growth. Our GDP per capita growth is terrible. It's because of all this net zero green initiative garbage. Canada could be one of the strongest economies in the world. Could absolutely be one of the strongest economies in the world. But our government sells us out, and rather than taking advantage of our incredible natural resources, they get themselves and their buddies rich as hell while the average Canadian citizen struggles. Our economy could be so much stronger. Can you imagine a combination of, for the past 10 years, not having this insane immigration, as well as getting rid of all this net zero garbage? Can you imagine if there were still only 32 million Canadians in Canada and we were actually taking advantage of our opportunities with LNG, with oil? Canada has incredible natural resources that the world needs, but under Liberal leadership, time and time again, we see what happened with Stellantis, where Stellantis goes to the United States, takes $15 billion from the Canadian taxpayer, packs up and leaves, taking 3,000 jobs, goes to the United States, makes a $13 billion investment. And Stellantis' reasoning is that the American business environment is much more friendly, which it clearly is. Read Carney's book, Values. He talks about how he respects Marx, but he spent his entire life in service of the WF Davos Brookfield Asset Management. The idea that this guy was some $1 trillion asset management manager, and now he's just decided he wants to help the Canadian people out, is a total joke. He is not working on behalf of the Canadian people. He's working on behalf of these globalist organizations, the WF Davos, digital ID, central digital banking, currencies, all this garbage that they're trying to push. This is absolutely what Carney's on board with, a mass immigration, despite the fact that Canadians do not want it. And like I said, we can boycott Tim Hortons, which we should, but there's got to be a way to hit Carney in the pocketbook. There's got to be a way to hit Carney in the pocketbook, because it's so... I should put a video together detailing all of the illegality that's gone on in terms of his violations. He's just blatantly, on a couple occasions, violated the Conflict of Interest Act, going out and talking about businesses we know he has an interest in. We know for a fact that so-called blind trusts are not really blind. He knows exactly what he's invested in. A lot of information about the $25 billion investment he claimed the Canadian government was going to make in modular homes, and then Brookfield had just made a major investment in that same area. The man just looks crooked, you can tell, and he talks out both sides of his mouth. When he's speaking with Trump, when he's actually face to face with Trump, he's incredibly friendly with the guy. It's all smiles. And then every time he gets away from him, he's just shit talking him, antagonizing him, get tariffs. But it's almost as though he's not actually working on behalf of the Canadian people. And you can also tell whenever the man gets up in front of the media. Whenever the man gets up in front of the media, it's not genuine. He wants to get out of there as quickly as he possibly can. He looks down at the peasants who are questioning him. But yeah, we need to figure out a way to better expose exactly Carney's financial misdeeds, because it's obvious when Tim Hortons is lobbying for another 10% of their workforce allowed to be temporary foreign worker. That's just anti-Canadian on its face. That's ridiculous. When we have a 16% youth unemployment rate, it's not the immigrants' fault. It's the government of Canada's fault for these ridiculous policies, bringing in unprecedented rates of people for a decade plus. Because at the end of the day, it aligns their pocketbook. And that's why we have to detail Carney's financial interests and exactly how he's stealing from Canadian taxpayers. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member, donate, grab some gear. Appreciate it.